Well, welcome everyone. This is Together LA's interview with Propaganda. I'm Brannin Pitre. I help lead Together LA. Joining me today is Larry Acosta. He is a great friend, a longtime Angelino, longtime ministry experience. Larry's leading our church planting efforts throughout the city with City to City LA and beginning to oversee Together LA as well. But one of the great joys for me today, besides being joined by Larry Acosta, is Prop. Welcome, Prop. We're glad you're here. Prop is a LA-based poet, political activist, academic, MC, self-proclaimed Anthony Bourdain of coffee. So, Prop, what you drinking this morning?
Yo, today I had some Rose Park Roasters, Long Beach. It was a Burundi.
Burundi.
Wow. Yeah.
Wow. Down with it. Down with it. Host of Hood Politics and podcast, and host of is the Red Couch podcast?
Red Couch,
yeah. Yeah, man, welcome. Thanks so much for joining us. It's really exciting.
Man. So honored to be here, man. Appreciate y'all.
I feel a little, every time I'm around you, I feel a little awestruck because you're so good. You're so well, I'll tell you what you are in a little bit, but it's just awesome. It's awesome. I've been listening to you since probably 2011. And you've always struck me as insightful, gentle, and funny. You say things that really resonate with me, like my spelling errors are not a reflection of my intelligence. And as someone who's dyslexic, I get it, man. I'm like, oh, man. I can't spell cat, man. So
man, I swear I know what I'm talking about. Like, I swear to y'all, I know what I'm talking about. God, no, man. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I don't write a handwritten note without typing it out first and spell checking it. Then I copy it off.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant.
But then at times, you say stuff like that, you're insightful, gentle, and funny. And then at times your poetry is like a knife in a butcher's hand. It can be used to hack away and do damage, or it can be razor sharp and delicate and sliced with precision. That's kind of how I've seen you.
Thank you.
Like in your poem 230, which we'll play in a little bit. Mm-hmm. You have a line like this: and mixed metaphors can still speak volumes. How not only black was beautiful, but when shadows block out the light shows its brilliance. It didn't even know it had. We should trust black more. I love that.
Thanks, man.
And then you'll have this incredibly tender, vulnerable, and almost suburban-like post on social media like this. Have any of y'all been unknowingly cut off by a family member? Any tips on approaching the repair of that relationship?
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, it's just tender. Do you see these dual aspects in yourself when you write and when you engage?
Absolutely. I think since, my public persona is not a persona in the sense of it's not who I am. You know what I mean? Like I myself as an artist, as a brand, one thing I've always valued is that real authenticity, that I'm like, this is me, and me is a human, and I am as complex as everybody else, where there's things that, you've done well, and there are things that you can do better in, and I think part of leadership is showing both of that, is showing that, like, yeah, dude, like there's areas I'm failing in, you know what I'm saying? And then there's areas that, like, yo, I can see I'm on the other end of that failure, if you will, where it's like, I've learned that lesson now, you know what I'm saying? And this is where we are. And I think that, like, I'm not trying to, like, tell you what to do. I'm just telling you the process I went through. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that kind of leads me into this one. You just wrote a book, Terraform, right?
Yeah.
It's a collection of your thoughts, your poetry, your wisdom, really. Can you tell us a little bit what led you to write that book and why now? Why now?
Yeah. So a couple years back, I had a good amount of things fall apart, and sort of, but I landed with a super dope management team who's, really good friend. And he just kind of asked me, like, hey, what do you want to talk about for the next 10 years? And I was like, whoa, sheesh, 10, right? Okay. So then I was like, well, what am I really passionate about? Like, and, okay, that covers everything that I'm, like, interested in. Cause if we're talking about 10 years, it's a lot to say, So, I thought, the structure and formation of culture, like, that's really what if I boil down my music, my poetry, me even being a teacher, ministry, all of it. It's like, man, I think a lot about culture, politics, everything. So I came across this term terraform, which is a science fiction word for when you find a distant planet, like the process of making that planet livable, right? That process is called terraforming. And then we start thinking about like the world we're in now, and I'm like, it's getting less and less livable, so maybe rather than looking at a distant planet, we should be looking at our own planet, our own the physicality of the earth, and also the culture we exist in, the things that the infrastructures we built, our families, our communities, and then also ourselves, and think maybe we should consider building a livable world for ourselves, So that I use that as sort of the springboard, the creative springboard into the poetry and the prose, and sort of what I'm suggesting, which is just like really just to stretch our imaginations. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, like there's no answers in the book, you know what I'm saying? But there's like in hopes to expand our collective, sort of prophetic imagination. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. That's good.
Thanks, man. Yeah.
There, you got one?
Prop, I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit about, as you've come through this COVID season and shutdown, like how have you grown from the inside out, and what'd you learn about leading and creating and loving even through not just the shutdown, but all the social unrest that was also swirling around?
I think actually some of the drums that you've kind of been beating for years really came to life. One is the necessity of rest, of your own community, of like, learning how to work at a pace that's actually sustainable. I think what I saw in sort of the going into the pandemic, like my heart and mind first was like, well, I've been poor before, so I know how to not have money, but I've never been in a pandemic, you know what I'm saying? So it was like, okay, so this is different, so it made me think about like, what are all of these other waves? It kind of like reminded me of, when I was like, making spaghetti because it lasts for 4 days, you know what I'm saying? What those sort of like go find it in whatever way you can, sort of that instinct I've had for years that I got away from once you got a little more stable. So I think I had so many different plates spinning, like you said, the coffee, the podcast, writing, all this stuff was like things that I was so busy just trying to keep things in the air that I never gave any of these other things any oxygen. You know what I'm saying? So forcing myself to slow down and kind of be like, man, I've never spent a whole continuous month at home my entire marriage.
Right.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like it was always one weekend. Yeah. Or something, at least one weekend I was gone. I was like, man, this is kind of cool, to be home,
Did your wife agree with that?
She did, because my wife is like, so my wife's like extremely introverted, but she's also like, she's a working professional. So she's always been like, man, like it's cool to have help. You know what I'm saying? That like I can do what I'm doing. You know what I'm saying? So she did, but definitely by July, she was like, dog, it'd be cool if you was gone for a few days, but
don't you have somewhere else to be?
You got somewhere else? Like, no, baby, I don't. I'm sorry.
Government said I couldn't go.
Yeah, no, but I think I learned one was the importance of like working on your own inner world, the importance of rest, the importance of investing in the things rather than just trying to keep the thing going. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's one of the things I learned. I learned that like, I think this lady who my wife always quotes to me, her name is Carol Hanish. I always say her name wrong, but she's like a feminist author, and she would say things like the personal is political and culture can only be as healed as we are. So, in all of our hopes to see the world, be better. Like, I think that if we're unhealthy, culture is going to continue to be unhealthy, So I think that, like, this coming into this and even seeing what we needed to do with our civil unrest and stuff like that, like, there's so many wounds that continue to be inflicted, sociopolitically, publicly, and as far as like justice is concerned, that, in the midst of us trying to see systemic change, we're still bearing the scars, what I'm saying, of what those injustices caused, what I'm saying? So I think that, like, taking a second to say, I am not the only, it's not only solely on my shoulders to, like, change the world. Like, there's a lot of us out here. I can take a second to take care of myself, take care of my family, invest in my home, invest in my health. And then from there, go out and see the change in the world. You know what I mean? I think that's what the pandemic saves.
Okay, well, that's so good. Could you just elaborate on this? Because as you're talking right there, I just was thinking, during this chaotic season, we saw so much division and seemingly, people on both sides of the spectrum. And I saw so much activism, but I saw Jesus in certain camps get pushed to the margins. And so we all have this burden for to see justice lived out in beautiful ways. And there's a human side to that moves the needle, but there's also needing a power that we can't do in our own human power. We need the gospel and the power of Jesus and his blood to be somewhere in the mix of that. So can you talk a little bit about what have you learned about doing justice with Jesus in the mix, not just pushing Jesus to the margins so that our activism can just rage? I don't know.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there's a couple ways to approach this. I think in some ways we were, and I'm speaking specifically about an American church, because understanding, like, the global church is having a very different conversation than us. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're only 11% of the body. You know what I mean? So, like, this, even the paradox you're presenting, that's a uniquely Western problem. You know what I'm saying? Like, the vast majority of the body doesn't see this dichotomy, but that said, this is where we are. And I think in some senses, there's a little bit of sowing and reaping. I think we sowed seeds for so many years as a Western American church that saw justice as ancillary and separate. And we use terms like social gospel, you know what I'm saying? And so we sowed that by saying, well, Jesus is worried about just these things and just these topics. You know what I'm saying? So, but if you're the ones that are suffering from these systemic things and hearing your church saying, oh, well, those are secondary issues, then you've been telling us this for 30 years. So you told me that Jesus doesn't have a place in this. You know what I'm saying? So it wasn't necessarily being pushed out. It was, I'm just listening to what y'all taught us. You told me that was separate. You told me that's what it was, Now, if you come from a tradition, I come from, like, more of a Black church, an inner city church, that's not how we've existed. There was never separate for us. You know what I mean? So in my experience, it was like, there was plenty of church out there. There was plenty of Jesus out there. It just wasn't that tradition. You know what I'm saying? That particular tradition that wasn't outside. You know what I'm saying? Because they've never been outside. You know what I'm saying? They've never been a part of it. And out of their own mouth, they said they didn't want to be a part of it. So I think that there's, in some senses, there's that. Now, that said, it's difficult to make these, like, blanket statements about, the entirety of, First Baptist, evangelical, yada, yada. You know what I'm saying? You can't make these, like, entire statements about the entire group of people there. But as a whole, this was central to their doctrine that, your salvation is a soul. It's you acting right. It's you discipling. It's a very personal, thing that you just need to be a good believer. You know what I'm saying? That, and systemic issues is that's in some senses belief that it wasn't even there. You know what I'm saying? So I think that there was in one side you saw, again, like I said, a sowing and reaping, like these are the seeds you sowed. You know what I'm saying? And unfortunately, when you had those that were inside of that, you know, sort of institution that didn't necessarily think that way, that were like, wait, no, like, really? That's what y'all heard from what we were saying? Like, oh Lord, no, that's not what we were saying. You know what I'm saying? That kind of feel like now you're chasing, you know, trying to like, you know, trying to repair, you know, and maybe in that person's heart some miscommunications, or realizing like maybe I did have some theological errors. You know what I mean? That like crap. And it's like, well, my God, like I don't, well, what do I do now? It's like, well, now you just come outside, man. You know what I'm saying? And do your best. So I think that like it wasn't so much that Jesus was set aside as a whole, because I knew a number of churches out there. I knew a number of pastors out there. It was a very particular sort of space inside the church that I felt like was playing catch up. You know what I mean? But at the same time, it's like, you know, a freeway has a lot of entrance, you know, on ramps. Like, you're welcome to get on. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I guess that's kind of the way I would see it. So yeah, I think there's a little bit of like, we were in the same time as like the world was going through this reckoning. Like the body kind of had to go through its same reckoning and be like, we need to put on our big boy pants and say, hey, dude, like, I need, like, let's think about this for a second. You know what I'm saying?
Where do you think? Go ahead, Larry. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I appreciate you, you know, wrestling through that. I just, as the church goes forward, I'd love to see, I just love to have that conversation more.
Yeah,
so
man.
That justice is embracing Jesus in the mix more intentionally, and whatever that.
Yeah, you know. So when you take somebody like, you know, maybe this might be an even more difficult conversation, but you take somebody like Dr. King, obviously, who embodied this, where you have entire like denominations saying, well, he doesn't understand the gospel, like he's doing something. You know what I'm saying? And to this day, people going, Dr. King did great work, but he was wrong about the gospel. He was a false teacher. He wasn't a good pastor. Like you're hearing churches say that now about him. So at that point, like I said, like, well, somebody who's like myself goes, oh, okay, well, all right, well then I guess we're not on the same page here then. You know what I'm saying? So when that thing is reckoned, you know what I'm saying, to where we're going, I don't understand what you mean. Like he was our pastor, you know what I mean? And even the guy that took over his church, who's now in Congress, there's still parts of the American body that's saying, well, that guy's a false teacher. You know what I mean? And it's like, well, dude, okay, man. Like, what do you like? It's like at some point you're like, well, what do you want me to say, man? Like, you know, this guy's like trying to live out his faith, you know what I mean, in a way that is public, you know? And of course we may have theological issues, but dude, come on, man. False teacher, bro. Like, what are you saying, man? You know, like maybe, like you said, maybe let's come in and say, hey, listen, man, we're looking at this multifaceted diamond that is the atonement, this beauty that is the gospel. Maybe I'm standing on this side of this diamond, and that means that's the side of this diamond you don't see. And like, I'm not looking around your side going, you're looking at it wrong. I'm saying, hey, dude, like that's your, like, tell me about what you see over there. Okay, well, let me tell you about what I see over here, because we're all trying to get our brain around something that is so beautiful, so beyond words, so above us all, so transcendent, that we should all just be in awe of the perspectives that we all have as we're looking at this diamond, you know?
Yeah, bro. I love it.
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
I love that. You know, I think where some of the fear comes in from that other side that you said, you know, you can't make these huge blanket statements about everybody.
Yeah,
but as a whole, you know, it's defining the diamond. Are we talking about a diamond? Or are we talking about an egg?
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And I think most of us are saying, let's get to the table, because the diamond has so many facets.
Yeah.
That we want to talk about the diamond. We want to leave it at the diamond. So we recently just passed a federal holiday for Juneteenth.
Yeah, man.
How'd you feel about that?
Man, you know, it's complicated, right? Because it's like, at the same time, you're not passing a lynching bill. Like, you're trying to stop us from talking about racism in school. You know, it's like, so you say, there's a part of me, like, there's a picture of Rosa Parks right behind this camera of her mugshot right up here, you know. And I think about the legislators, the people that have been fighting for years to get this law passed, you know, that it's beautiful to see, you know, but it's complicated because, you know, if this is passed without any of the supporting things that sort of show that, like, you actually do care, then it starts to feel like, man, maybe we're just being pacified. Like, maybe this is like, okay, dude, here, are you happy? You know, you got a day off. You know what I'm saying? You know, I say that not to diminish the feat that is, you know, we are, like, so many years later at this place, you know, but I do say that to say that, like, our work's not done. Like, we're not, you know, I think in the same way, like, as a joke, like, I think, you know, if I see somebody show up at work in a dashiki like they do Cinco de Mayo with a, you know what I'm saying? Like, y'all start treating it like Cinco de Mayo, like I'm slapping somebody, you know what I'm saying? Running around here with a sombrero on Cinco de Mayo, like, man, I'm slapping you, okay? That's not what we doing now, all right? You know, but yeah, you know, I say it as a joke. But I think that, like, you know, things like Juneteenth and the importance of Juneteenth is important, you know what I'm saying? But it's important in the way that it should be coupled with an understanding of how we got here, you know, and what else can we do sort of to make this better, you know. And I use Cinco de Mayo as like a comparison here, how it's like, well, that's not the Mexican Independence Day. Mm-hmm. How many people think it is? You know what I'm saying? It was because, you know, I teaches it, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, so I'm like, you can't just have these holidays without the education of, like, how we got to where we are. You know what I'm saying? So I think that, like, it's beautiful, but there's a lot more work to be done.
Yeah. Yeah. Larry, you want to take the next one?
Prop, I think of you now as a dad. I knew you for so long as a single guy, and now I see you as this dad leading your family, and I'm thinking about that shift and how you're trying to transfer your values to the next generation and your family. Yeah. And I don't know, talk a little bit about your family and, you know, what are you doing to, you know, shape them and transfer your heart and your kingdom values to your kids?
Yeah. It's scary, right? Like, cause it's a whole new world, you know, they know and relate to you in a totally different way than you're used to. I always thought that I was so, I'm tongue in cheek. I'm saying this tongue in cheek. I was so impressive that I would just impress my children by my brilliance and prowess and the things that I'm doing in the world, you know, and they're just not impressed at all, you know. I'm not even the favorite parent, you know, and they make it very clear that I'm not, you know. So I think that like, by saying, oh yeah, your mom's our favorite.
Whoa. Like that.
It came out of their mouth. You know what I'm saying?
That's cold. That's cold.
I was like, oh yeah, all right. Yeah, say it out loud, but I mean, I know, but you ain't have to say it out, you know. But I think it's like the idea. I think what has really sort of the shift has been the need for, more than ever, the transparency and the humility of being a learner and being very teachable, very open, a much better listener, not having the answers, but being willing to, like, journey together, especially as, like, my older one is now in the teenage years, that, like, moving from, like, you know, holding her hand to becoming the net under her tightrope, you know what I'm saying? And being like, I just have to let you walk, you know, and learn how to just, like, make it clear to her that I hear her, you know. It's been really, like, interesting, and then just sort of leading in a way that is by doing, you know, in that you see me devouring content, you see me challenging my own norms, bringing people into our space that's so much different than mine, that's challenging my worldviews, my experiences, being able to be like, dang, I was totally wrong about that. You know what I'm saying? Or like, man, there's another way to, I didn't know, bro. Like, honestly, I didn't know, and, even from that tweet that you that post, you talked about it, like, man, I hurt somebody in my past, and being like, and her seeing me, in me just processing for myself, I know that I'm doing this in front of people, and I'm hoping that I'm modeling to them that I'm like, I'm seeking to make that right, in as best as I can. And then accepting the things that are like out of my hands. Like, so if my family member just doesn't want to respond, I have to accept that, like, and respect that person's boundaries, and just own that, like, yo, I'm a flawed individual. I'm on a journey. I know it doesn't represent where I am now. You know what I'm saying? But I have to embrace my mistakes, you know what I'm saying? And live with them, and hope that my children see the humility in that, you know what I'm saying? That
Right.
I'm not defending myself. I'm trying to express remorse and, and seek forgiveness, but in as best as I can, you know what I mean? And it was interesting because, like, again, giving that example, my eldest daughter had a situation with one of her friends where she was like, yo, this friend has offended me way too many times, and I'm just done. And I'm like, have you told her that you're done? And she's like, I don't have the energy to talk to her. And then just being able to be like, well, yo, like, in that scenario, dad's the friend. I'm the one that doesn't know. You know what I'm saying? So I'm asking, because you see how it's tormenting me. Like, I'm asking you to at least give that person a chance to apologize. You know what I'm saying? But while protecting yourself, you know what I mean? And she did, they did their thing, but she's like, yeah, it is what it is. You know what I'm saying? But the point, all that to say, I'm trying to show that I am journeying. I have not made it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I found that, like, leadership in my home is showing that I'm still journeying too,
Trying to model it, but also your
Yeah.
own process as well, letting them
Yeah.
see us as dads in real
Yeah.
time, that hopefully we're apologizing and owning stuff, and being humble when necessary. That's good, man. That's really good.
Yeah.
Fatherhood and age, man.
Man.
Softens
Good God.
you.
Yes.
Good God is right.
Good God, man.
It humbles and softens you. And
yes,
I'm not as angry as I was in my 20s. I can't.
No, I'm not. Not only am I not as angry, I'm not as convinced. I know what I'm talking about. I was convinced, boy. Yeah.
I know, it's so true. It's so true. Well, you did. We're gonna play these in just a minute, but you did 3 recordings for us that I'm anxious and excited for our audience to listen to. One is Mars. One is 2 minutes 30 or 2:30, and one is Complicated. We'll play them in that order, but can you give us a little bit of background on each one of those?
Yeah. So the Mars. So you said Mars and Complicated.
Mars, right. 2:30 and so Mars Mars to me is a really interesting look on what kind of like your book Terraform, right?
Yeah.
It's that kind of perspective on conquering culture and the ills of it. Then you get to then I think the next one is 2:30, which is deeply passionate, justice oriented, and then you've got Complicated. And I love the way that those 3 kind of complement each other. So you tell me a little bit about your process through it.
Yeah. So Mars was probably one of the anchoring poems for, like, the whole book. You know what I mean? In the idea of, like, in my nerdery of, like, looking at just our missions to Mars and what we're doing there, what we're trying to do there. I'm just a nerd, you know what I mean? I'm, like, super interested in stuff like that. And then I saw an interview with sort of Elon Musk, and him just talking about, like, dude, this is the new Wild West, man. Like, and then that's my brain started spinning, where I was like, oh my gosh, we're just going to do to Mars what we did to Earth, and we're just going to draw borders that aren't there and start wars over. And I'm like, dude, like, cause there's no rules, and at least on the planet now, there's no rules. And I was like, dude, we're just going to we haven't have we learned anything, you know? We're just gonna, and then we're gonna destroy Mars and try to find another planet, you know? So I'm like, man, if we just, it's almost like I started thinking about, man, ex-girlfriends, you know, and anybody with their exes, you walk away from the ex, she's like, dang, they crazy. It's like, really? Are they? Why? Was that so the last 4 ladies you dated? You know what I'm saying?
Sometimes they are crazy.
Yeah,
sometimes they are.
Maybe, you know what I'm saying? Or maybe you made them crazy. You know what I'm saying?
That's
so
true.
Like,
That's
so that
true.
was the point I was trying to make, where I was like, man, what's the constant here? Maybe it's you. You know what I'm saying? So
sometimes I'm crazy.
Yeah, and I realized that was the thing. It was like I was bringing habits and views into these relationships and thinking it was all their fault. And I'm like, dog, maybe the problem's me. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, so is the problem Earth or is the problem humans? You know? So yeah. I started thinking, man, like, yo, if we're gonna go somewhere, we should learn the lessons of where we went wrong here, you know? So then I just thought planetary, and then I thought, man, we kind of do the same with relationships. And I was like, dang, I kind of use myself as just a resource too, like, you know, and it's non-renewable, man. You gotta, you know, so I think it was more like, again, kind of the pathway of the book to where it's like, we're talking planetary, but we're also talking personal, you know? So I wanted to be able to like walk us through that whole thing. And then, so the 2 minutes and 30 seconds, again, to like, a lot of my work is like, yeah, it's observational. It's seeing myself in bigger things. So I was using, without revealing the thing, but I was using the solar eclipse to kind of show how, even as a believer, like, dang, there's stuff that's happening that's so far above us, that's so beautiful, that when we actually get a hold of how beautiful that is, anything that's happening down here just seems like a silly conversation, you know? Like, what are we, because I was on the 405 during the eclipse with my head all out the window, driving all slow, trying to like make sure I don't hit nobody. And then there's other people on the freeway, and we're all like, why don't we just pull over? Yeah, you know. So I just pulled over, and now we're like, I'm sharing this moment with these total strangers, you know what I mean? Like on the side of a highway I drive all the time, you know, and I'm like, I wonder how many times I crossed this person. I wonder how many times we've been in this, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And they were just like, but now we all stopped talking about anything else, looking at anything else at that moment is like silly. Like, why are you interested in anything else?
Insignificant, right?
It's so insignificant. So it really just calibrates where I was like, man, you know, this moment for these 2 minutes and 30 seconds, like we were really in awe, you know? And it's like, man, I wish I could carry that forever, you know? And I don't know, you know, because there's still stuff you got to deal with, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, I mean, everybody mad at Martha for cleaning the house, but somebody had to, you know what I'm saying? Like, okay, yeah, maybe she didn't have to have the attitude she had about it, but you know, I mean, it'd be cool if somebody had to cook this lunch, you know what I'm saying? Maybe cook it with joy. Maybe that was the problem. She just didn't cook it with joy, you know what I'm saying? So, but somebody had to, you know what I mean? So at some point you had to like, we do have to deal with these things, but like, maybe let's do it from a sense of awe, you know? So yeah. And then leading into, like you said, it's complicated. It's kind of the same thing, you know, where it's like, yeah, you know, but once we get to these things that are on the ground, people, I mean, I wrote that poem's a little older. I wrote that around the, you know, 2016 election and the, you know, and the year after, just sort of like what was happening in our, you know, political spheres getting more and more and more sort of siloed and just feeling like we were able to draw ropes around people and decide, well, you're that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, I was being called a number of things that were like, bro, like, again, like, man, you don't know me. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I'm much more complicated than these boxes. And I know you are too, you know? Yeah. So I wanted to give people that freedom to feel like you don't have to like contort yourself to fit into a category that somebody else gave you. It's okay. It's complicated. You're more than that. You know, you're transcendent. There's more to you than these, you know, terrestrial boxes that we put ourselves in. And so once you accepted that, then you could go back the other way around, back into 2 minutes and 30 seconds, and then out to the Mission to Mars thing to be like, oh, okay, there's a lot going on here, you know?
A lot.
Yeah.
That's what I appreciate about your spoken word so much and your writing, is that you're able to capture all that so succinctly, you know, like tools, knives in the hands of a chef, right?
Yeah, man.
You know which tool to use at which time, and it's really, really good. Really good. Prop, thanks so much for being with us. Larry, you got anything else on the end?
Man, Prop, I just want to thank you for your faithfulness through the years, and
Thanks, man.
just to say, you know, keep speaking truth, stay close to Jesus, and
Amen.
Keep chasing after those kids.
Bro.
Yeah.
And I'd even like to add, I mean, I've said it on a number of other platforms, but like, you know, give you your flowers, Larry, you know, while you could still smell them, that like, you know, Larry and UIWI, this was like the first national stage I'd ever been on, you know, the first person to really be like, we're going to put you on our national platform. We believe in you, you know, that Larry was first, you know what I'm saying? And so, you know, before that, I was local gigging, you know what I mean? For gas money and dinner, you know what I'm saying? But like, for him to like, honestly be like, nah, I see something in you. You know what I'm saying? Like I just like, I was want everybody to know Larry was the first to trust me, you know? So yeah, I just want to give you your flowers and say that before we go, you know, props to
love you and believe in you.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
You,
yeah, man.
That's so good. And that story is not only yours, but so many guys in LA have had that story with Larry. He's phenomenal. He's phenomenal.
Yeah,
you're living testimony to that. My friendship with him is a testimony to that. And you're doing that for others too. Appreciate that.
Man.
Love you.
Also, love you too, man. Thanks, guys.
We're going to take it out and we're going to play those 3 poems and let them see it. But thanks again, Prop.
Thank you, man. You know, if we're not careful, Mars will be just another gold rush, another pre-Columbian America, scraping, raping, scratching, gouging, making up lines, then screaming mine into newly formed oxygen, tapping planetary veins in search of arrogance in the form of rocks. You know, the real millionaires of the gold rush were the shovel salesmen. I think we going about this all wrong. Mars finna be another East India Trading Co. Spilling Mars spice across the most pristine of spacescapes till somebody starts a war over stuff that just come out the ground. Because somebody used what come out the ground to buy the ground. You know what funded the Renaissance was the forests, the Atlantic Ocean. You wrong, Mom. Money grows on trees. Money is trees. We just ain't getting her because they chopped them all down and built their cathedrals for me and you could get out the digger quarters. Listen, I ain't salty. Hell, salt for sale too. Are we finna act like Standing Rock protesters weren't absolutely correct? Lakota water sources stained in earth blood. History got bars. Rhyming like a mug if we not careful. Our friendships will be just another gold rush. People for identity, transactional, functional. You know, we not careful. Our marriages, just another gold rush. People for satisfaction, for pleasure, for fulfillment. It's been my finding that we are much better at crisis than we are warning. And I'm starting to wonder about the first part. But if the Visa ever got versed, it would body the beat if we not careful. Our own selves will be just another gold rush. You too busy taking advantage of you to even enjoy you, to realize your proverbial F's to give are fossil fuel. a non-renewable resource. Yes, there's enough of you to go around, but where is your code? When's the last time you said no when the bag was oh so yes? Why are there bits of you floating around the stock, farmers, and flea market? You couldn't bring your full self to a moment even if you tried. If we're not careful, if we don't take care, you may not see that Earth as Mars will be fine. Roots expand, cracking the strongest of concrete to fling out their branch wings. But me and you, we need a break. We need a rest. And although you don't owe us anything, it'd be an honor to be in your orbit. So in 2017, for 2 minutes and 30 seconds, we were on Pangea, one land, one nation, one planet. And I and my ancestors were the same age, 2 minutes, 30 seconds. We saw how small we are. We saw how privileged we are to see how small we are. We saw black was beautiful, and if you just let black be black, it blocks out the light and reveals the brilliance the light didn't even know it had. You know, we should trust black more. And mixed metaphors can speak volumes. You know, the planet knew we needed it. We were 2 days away from Nazis marching on American soil, spitting the most vile irony on the American myths, the greatest generation rhetoric. We were 3 days away from cars, driving into peace, white lives matter, blood and soil, appropriated Polynesian mosquito repellent turned white hood, tiki torch turned burnt crosses, frat boy uniforms in all khaki, which were kind of funny though. But 3 days ago, we were one planet, 2 minutes, 30 seconds. Our perspective, it was orbital. And when you know it, when you look back down at the ground from space, the word America ain't written across the ground. It don't look like the maps streaked across the globe, streamed revolution televised, Bend, Oregon highways turned into one-ways to support the traffic. Kim Jong was singing Bob Marley. Vlad, he French kissed Trump. Ta-Nehisi and Cornell squashed they beef. Biggie and Tupac did a song together. Stormy Daniels and the Prophet Daniel drank Thunderbird. Elvis and swing dancing finally admitted to being appropriators and gentrifiers. Weinstein, he thought twice about unzipping. And Meek, he was set free early, 2 minutes, 30 seconds. I straightened my side eye at them silly little red hats. And hippie white girls with hula hoops. Who cared about traffic on the 405? Heavenly bodies just showed off their curves. Beautiful stretch marks. Space can be so sexy. We let our appetite for destruction satiate for a second. Traded our guns for roses. 2 minutes, 30 seconds. Was you too cool for the glasses? Was you too stupid to not look directly at it? Did our president actually look directly at it after every expert said, don't look directly at it? Did you laugh? Hey, but you ever made out with somebody you know you shouldn't have? You ever touched something you know you wasn't supposed to touch? You ever seen an eclipse? You ever been to Stonehenge? You ever felt connected to Mayans and Druids at the same time? Dogons, Egyptians, Etruscans, Ethiopians, 2 minutes, 30 seconds. You've ever experienced something that was so far above you and was going to happen whether you was there or not, yet it felt like the entirety of the cosmos conspired just to show you something about yourself. 2 minutes, 30 seconds. I just hope to be alive for the next one. We are often our own demise, and I am becoming procrastination. Like, you are so often so wrong about you and you don't even know it. Self-identified as particle board, paper mache, duct taped, and you are wrong and right and confused. It's complicated. But you know, so is a star, a flower, a quasar, a friendship, a marriage. May we be refuge for the complicated, and as for me, well, I have zipped up my emotions into this dusty duffel bag that I've aptly named poetry. And I'll be on my merry way soon as my pride turns me loose and unmangle the last morsel of manhood I can produce, ma'am. I seem to have misplaced my confidence. Last place I seen it was at the altar of your love, and it's complicated. And I am becoming complicated. We may scratch ourselves raw to try to erase the image we were made in. Smoke, snort, sex, or drown out the silence. And we may waste our life savings on makeovers to try to rhinoplast our daddy's nose away, but no nip, no tuck could cut away the sense of obligation. We are becoming what we're not, and what we are is inescapable. You are a masterpiece, fighting to be a silly selfie, the hideous filter. You are heaven's handmade calligraphy, slumming it among papyrus fonts. You're the complete and perfect works of a perfect and eternal poet laureate with a laundry list of identity issues, and sometimes your plumbing don't match your urges. But your femininity forced the force field that protected our posterity. Your masculinity mustered up moxie to conquer mountains for our families. You are the rightful heirs to not just a kingdom, but a universe. You got your daddy's eyes. Stop being so traitorous. You are revelation revealed. Pyramid constructors, conductors. You are conduits of lightning, yet you speak and you breathe. It's arsenic carcinogenics, and it causes car sickness. But these scars are our witness. To love hard is hard living, but that's life. That's who we are. It's messy and uncomfortable and complicated, but you know, so is a star. Parenting, childbirth, and middle school, and love, and us, and us. And now you oceans, you mighty blue tides, tell us your stories. Spare no details, hold no punches. Your legacy, it's as curious as dark matter. Or the heart of a woman, you sunsets. Show me no mercy. Tell us how we made you proud and we failed you in the same breath. How? Hands that lay waste to hopes and dreams can be shapers of epic destinies. How? Every triumphant march is chock full of Achilles' heels. How? Our heroes, flawed, fallen. How life, it's funny, it's fast, it's slow, it's both and, it's either your or. It's good, it's bad, it's ugly, it's patient building. You boneyards. Remind me that I am animated dust. So is the pedestal I put my mama on. The platforms we use to reach your ears sit in your hard drives. Remind me that I am not so different. We sit at the same table. And teach me to pay attention to this moment, and please keep me home.